What's up, Ohio? All right. I just want to make sure that nobody's in food coma right now, right? All right. All right, one more time. I always wanted to do that, so. What's up, Ohio? All right. Should I say Buckeyes? What is it? What is it? Is it Buckeye? All right, OH. Sorry. I am from Arizona. Come on, you got to cut me some slack, right? I honestly, my colleagues and my friends told me, like, dude, this is my first time in Ohio, by the way. This is my very first time in Ohio, anywhere in Ohio, right? Did anybody watch the game last night? Yeah, LeBron, LBJ, yes. Just one NBA fan in the crowd? Okay, I'm just kidding. Yes, like, I have to. I don't have an option now. I have to cheer for you guys, right? So this is my first time in Ohio, and I told my friends that, like, it's going to be at OSU, and they said, like, dude, you can wear anything you want except for a Michigan State shirt. So I said, like, all right, I keep that in mind. Like, you can go, anything will fly except for that. So I did my part. So by the way, the talk is, I'll let these guys settle in. They're trying to find a perfect acoustic spot right now. I know, the lunch was really, really good. I'm like, yeah, like, still people finishing up. I'm like, I'm going to run the very last minute. All right, so the talk that I'm going to be talking about, it's about outcome over output and taking your team to the next level of awesome. Everybody is here for that talk, right? Okay, good. If you're not for that one, don't worry. Subconsciously, you came to the right one. So you guys are fine, right? So a little bit about me. All right, it should work now. A little bit about me. I call myself as a culture hacker. Actually, I'm changing that now. I'm changing that to creative trespasser. It just sounds much better than an agile coach, right? But unfortunately, they won't print that on my business card as an official title. They said, like, dude, we can't do that. So I'm a culture hacker. I'm also an agile and lean trainer. And not in like a lean trainer, but like lean concept trainer. I don't look in any way lean whatsoever. I'm also a speaker. I speak at many different conferences. This is actually my last stop in my speaking circuit. I was at Big Apple Scrum Day, then at Agile Indie, then at Product Think Tank, and now Ohio is my last stop before I call it for the month. And I'm also a guest lecturer at Arizona State University. Now, I know I'm at OSU, but any Sun Devils in the crowd? Demon. I know there's one person from Arizona, right? Yes, yeah, that's right. I met you at the lunch. I'm like, at least there's some, like, I have some, like, support over there. I thought you would just say, woohoo, for once. So I'm a guest lecturer at Arizona State University. I talk about design thinking, lean startup, an agile way of working at W.P. Carey School of Business. And when I'm not doing any of this stuff, I'm also an agile coach, if any time is left. I tweet a lot at Agile Bright Spot and even on my LinkedIn, just whatever random thoughts come to my head. I keep it very professional, I promise you. And I belong to an organization called IntraEdge. We do professional services, agile transformation, we do trainings. And if you like what you see today, we will allow you to even borrow some of our good, awesome coaches. All right, they look really good. Look at that picture. How can you go wrong, right? We kill them with the picture. That's what I say. So let's get into it, right? About a year and a half ago, I was called into this organization, and they wanted to basically take their agility to the next level. That's what they told me when they called me in for the interview, right? And it was a good half to a 3/4 day interview, right? So I was very intrigued, actually. They were going to dedicate that much time to meet with a potential coach or a consultant, and they had kept like a half to a 3/4 day to speak to the candidates. And the requirement was, or what they were looking for is that we want to take our agility to the next level. So I was very intrigued and curious. I said, that's very good. So the first round of interview, I met with the leaders. So these were the VPs, both on the engineering and the product side. And they said, like, Kalpesh, we've done all the right things with our teams. We've trained everybody. Everybody is trained. Everybody went through trainings. They're very familiar or very well versed with agile terminology, agile way of working. We even got dedicated coaches for them. They have received dedicated coaching at each team level for almost a year. We have done everything everything right by the book on whatever was recommended, and we've invested a lot in their growth and their development. And so that's fantastic. And we're doing Agile, but we don't feel Agile. I was like, okay. I'm like, I can give you a hug. That'll make you feel like. Does that feel Agile now? You know, you're hugging an Agile coach. So that's our challenge. Like, you know, it doesn't really feel that we're Agile yet. So I said, okay, that's interesting. I'll give that a shot. And so, like, you know, meet with our folks today and see what you think, what you evaluate, and then, like, you know, based on that, we will decide whether we should go forward or not. So right off the bat, I mean, this was sounding very interesting to me, and I was very curious. And as soon as I got done with them, I was escorted to a different conference room where I was supposed to be meeting with some of their Scrum Masters. So as soon as I went in there, and about 4 Scrum Masters walked into the room, all of them equipped with their laptops. They all walked in with their laptops, and they just popped open. They were using Rally at the time, and they popped open their Rally really quickly and said, "Hey, we've been doing Agile for a while. Our teams are very well versed with it. We're getting a lot of things right." And they were very proud to show me their metrics. So the first Scrum Master popped open and started showing me their dashboards and saying, "Look, here are velocity charts. Like, they are perfect. We haven't missed a commitment in last 12 sprints." I said, "Wow, that's pretty interesting." Like, yeah, and these are not like carryovers or whatnot. No, we actually finished it, and we adjust based on whoever is out or who is in, and things of that nature. But we haven't missed. We have a very good predictive way of knowing what we can deliver, and this looked pretty rock solid to me. I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting. The other Scrum Master then said, like, you know, well, velocity is all right, but you know, it's just numbers, right? Velocity is just number. What does that really mean? But throughput is what's important. So they showed me their throughput information. I said, look, here's a throughput, and we've been, like, you know, steadily increasing. That's a sign that's showing us that we're getting better. We're getting more efficient in the way we are doing things. I'm like, yes to you as well, my friend. You're right. So yeah, so they're like, you know, yeah, and we are. This was actually a brand new team that they started, and looked like right off the bat we were able to take them up or whatnot. I said, wow, that's pretty interesting. The third Scrum Master then jumped in. I said, like, you know, what really is velocity? What really is throughput, right? What's really important to us is the cycle lead time, right? So, and they popped open their cycle lead time, and they showed, like, look, our cycle lead times are doing fantastic too. I mean, you know, you laugh at, but it's pretty good. I mean, they kind of brought it down to like less than 2 or 3 days. I'm like, yeah, we get done. I mean, like, our stuff gets done in 2 or 3 days. That's a cycle lead time. Once something comes in the queue, we're able to get it out in like 2 or 3 days. I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive, right? And as a consultant or coach, I'm like, wow, what can I sell to these guys now, right? And then they said, well, you know what, this is just the metrics and stuff. I'm sure you're curious to know what our environment really looks like. And I was like, dang it. So okay. And so, like, you know, let us take you to our Gemba. I was like, now you guys are dropping Japanese word on me. I'm like, oh snap, right? So I'm like, all right, let's go see your Gemba, right? Does anybody know what Gemba means? Pretty much everybody? Oh, that's really, what does the Gemba mean? You're so excited, I have to say it.
Oh gosh, now I have to actually talk. It's like a walkthrough to learn a process with a team or a process you're unfamiliar with.
Right, yeah, I mean, so Gemba is a place of action where the crime was committed, right? If you ever watch like a Japanese CSI, the detective would be saying, I'm at the Gemba right now, right? It's like, this is where the action happened. So I said, sure, let's go look at like how you guys get things done. So they had a very open, collaborative workspace, right? I mean, it was pretty open, you know, no cubicle. Everybody is sitting, collaborating in a very impromptu fashion. Folks were, like, you know, getting together and getting into a good discussion. Whiteboards everywhere, pretty open. Co-located teams. So I asked them, like, you know, are the teams co-located? So like, yes, pretty much. We are actually in the process, and we only have about 10 to 5% offshore, and we are in the process of even fading that out. Everybody is going to be 100% co-location. I said, that's very interesting. Said, and you know what? We'll give you one better. Even our product owners are co-located with us. They sit right here with us, right? So our teams are co-located. Our product owners are co-located. I said, all right, so far so good. And we do all our ceremonies together. Like, we do our daily stand-ups, we are together, sprint planning, retrospective, sprint reviews, everything is done together. I said, wow, all right? And that's like, maybe I can sell you guys some of that, like, DevOps, CI/CD stuff, right? Maybe you're not doing that. And that's when they jumped into this part. Oh, yeah, we do. We are focusing on our technical agility, too. I mean, we are heavily investing into our automation. We are working into automation testing. We are working towards one-click deploy, CI/CD, and we address our technical debt, too. We have bartered this agreement with our product owners. Like, it's a 70-30 split. 70% of the backlog is towards feature and product enhancement, and 30% of our backlog is towards technical debt addressing, right? So that has been bartered. So I said, all right, that is good, right? So as far as metrics and environment were concerned, these guys were rock stars. No doubt, no denying. These guys had nailed it, right? And as they were kind of walking through this stuff and they were taking me through their Gemba or through their environment, telling me all that fun stuff, I slowly began to smile. And I slowly started getting like a little bit more happier, and I started looking for cameras in that room or in that area. And somehow I thought that my American dream was going to come true. I thought that probably Agile Alliance or Scrum Alliance or Scrum.org, right? I thought that I was one of those Agile coaches that they had picked, and I thought that Ashton Kutcher was just jump out sometime and say, you just got punked, right? Yeah, there's nothing like this perfect organization. We were just taking your case, dude. Yes, they have their fair share of problem, right? So I thought I would be on TV. My American dream would come true. Didn't happen. And the interview continued. I was like, dang it. So if you're anything like me, you're like, what the hell? Why did you guys call me? Right? How many of you are wondering that right now? Like, what the hell? Like, just raise your hand. Like, dude, what is going on over here, right? I mean, give me something to work with over here, right? So the interview continued, right? And now I was supposed to meet with their director of engineering and director of product, right? So I was supposed to be like, all right, well, let's just get it over with. But now I'm like seriously getting worried, right? So I said, all right, we'll go. So the product owner met with me and said, okay, yeah, you know what? We look at our users' feedback, then we kind of come up with ideas and we kind of design. We have our UX people that sit here with us, and we come up with a solution that we think would be addressing our users' problem. Fair enough, you guys are doing right things. And the engineering director is like, yeah, and you know what, our POs and our team members, they're sitting together. We look at what the solution is, we size them, we do the sprint bucketing, the whole release planning or whatnot. We build it, we'll keep the PO in the know-how, and we basically launch it out, right? And that's what we do. I said, okay, that sounds about right. You guys are doing the right things, right? So, and after about 2 or 3 months, if something is big, it goes out, we launch it. The project is on time and on budget. I mean, yes, no complaints over there. I look at the business stakeholder, the product director of product, I said, no problem. Everything is within budget. It's on time. No complaints over there. Agile is working for us. I said, all right, that's good news. And the product owner is happy. Yes, I mean, I've always been involved. I know what's going on. These guys take my feedback very well, and we kind of work on this stuff. I said, okay, fantastic. And both, even the product delivery and engineering delivery, they both are very happy. So now I'm like really wondering, like, so where's the but, right? But what, right? So, and that's what they give me. It's like, but the problem is our users aren't happy. We have a problem over there. We dish all this stuff out, but our users aren't happy. We are still not getting that rave reviews from them. Well, I said, okay, well, I have to think about this thing. I can look into this. And that's what I said at the end of the interview. I'm like, this looks like an interesting problem. I have to look into this a little bit more deeper, right? So they were very happy. I was like, we're very glad that you aren't one of those consultants who walked in and said, like, yeah, here are the 15 different things that you need to do or whatnot. You were actually one of those guys who said, we should look into this a little bit more deeper. So we'll give you a shot. So luckily for that answer, I got saved. And they said, yes. And I said, okay, let's look under the hood a little bit on what's going on, right? What's going on? This looks too beautiful to me, right? So I said, okay. And I started attending their there are different events. I started attending their daily stand-ups. I was attending their sprint planning and stuff like that. And I started attending their retrospectives. And in one of those retrospectives, I asked a very interesting question. You guys talk about user stories a lot. You guys are very proud about your metrics, the way you guys are doing things. Where do you think user stories come from? So if you asked your team members, where do you think user stories come from? What are you going to hear? From the product owner? What? From the backlog? I love it, from the backlog. Trust me, that's not the bad answer yet. Anybody else? What?
From the SRD.
SRD, I love it. What does SRD stand for? I'm sorry.
Systems Requirement
Document, yes. Sorry, I'm a millennial. I'm cool now. I missed that era. What's SRD, right? So yeah, you know, and by the way, let me tell you that not just that team. I actually asked these questions to over 100+ teams across the globe. I've asked these questions to team in China, to team in India, team in South Africa, teams in Germany, teams in Canada, and a whole bunch of teams in US. I've asked this question. Where do you think user stories come from? Got a whole bunch of answers. From the product owner. Yes, from the product owner, right? The product owner brings it for us. So it's there somewhere, and the product owner brings it for us, right? The product owner finds it for us. So it's like an Easter egg, and they go on a hunt, they find it, and they bring it to us, right? And some of them were like, they give it to us. We don't even know who they are, but they give it to us. So I said, all right. But the Hall of Fame answer that I got was, dude, just give me the story and I'll code for it. What's up with the 50 question? That wasn't a part of my training, right? But this answer actually got trumped, not by that team, but this one place I asked this question, and that's a Jira. So I walk in, and I open up Jira, and there are tickets, and I'm supposed to finish them. I think that's why we bought the tool. I mean, that's what the tool is, right? Otherwise, why would an organization spend so much money on buying this tool? It automatically knows what we're supposed to work on, and it queues us up, right? And that's what we do. And I was like, oh my God, I died a little bit inside when I heard that. There was a little tear. I really had to hold it back. I'm sorry for you, my friend. Actually, the guy honestly thought it was Jira. He wasn't kidding. And then everybody started laughing, so he kind of laughed along with it. But I knew that he wasn't. I'm like, we had one of those moments, right? But this is what was going on. So I said, all right, this is actually very interesting. So they're like, no, it's the product owner. That's where it comes from, according to us. It comes from the backlog, right? I said, all right, that's very interesting. So I did something so I said, there's a second part of the question. I said, I drew the Scrum framework on the whiteboard. Everybody familiar with the Scrum framework, this diagram, right? Who is not familiar, raise your hand. Okay, you're at the wrong conference. So I said, okay, well, what is your team spot? So I drew the Scrum framework on the board, and I asked the question, what do you think happens there before stuff comes into the backlog? So if you went back to your teams and you asked them this question, what do you think happens before stuff comes into the backlog? What answers are you going to hear? Come on, be bold. What? I'm not asking what you think, what your team members would be thinking. So if that's what I think your team members think, okay, good, exploration happens, all right. I heard something over here as well, sorry. Okay, what the team thinks, not what you think, yeah. Contract gets signed somewhere, yes. Demand management, yes. Prioritization of what? We have Jira for that. It automatically ranks stuff. Right?
A workshop?
Yeah. Somebody from over here.
Workshop?
A workshop?
Yeah.
Okay, a workshop, okay.
Business people make decisions.
Business people make decisions. I love it. Some guys in like black suit or whatnot in a fancy conference room sit together and say, okay, this is what you guys will be working from here on now, okay. Somebody over here said something. From the business, I love it, the business, right? I love the air quotes, I love that. I don't know, they gave it to us, right? I don't know what happens. they give it to us, right? So I asked this question. I've actually asked this question to many, many teams, and the answer is in the vicinity of this. It's magic. It is magic. We have many speculations of it. It's actually a mythical story according to them. But there was one answer which was actually very spot on, right? And it says the product owner consults the Oracle. They make a hike to Greece. They meet with the Oracle, and they says, Oracle, what should we work on next? And the Oracle advises them. Thou shall be your strategy. Right? And they come back, and they open up Jira or Rally or whatever they have, and they go at it. Right? And that's where your work really comes from. And then I said, well, okay, you know what? I'm not going to blame you for that. I am not. I honestly am not, because it's upstream stuff. You are never exposed to that, right? Historically, culturally, educationally, you guys have never been told to look in that stuff. So it's all good. But I said, okay, tell me something. What do you think happens after you put stuff into production? So if you went and asked your team, what do you think happens once you launch? What are you going to hear from them? We get paid. So if you're waiting till the code launches to get paid, oh, they're in serious trouble. It's like, yeah, 6 months later, I got paid. It's a big paycheck, but yes. God forbid if they're waterfall. It's like, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, I'll get paid sometime. I don't know. So what do you think happens? The what takes it? A support team takes it. I love it.
You hear from the customer.
What?
You hear from the customer.
You hear from the customer. Yes, okay. Customers find our bugs. Yes, I love it. They go straight to Twitter. That's the new, that's the new Jira. That's the new, quality management tool. Right? Log your defects on Twitter for us, please. That's what we do, because it really gets the attention. It really does, right? That's what happens, right? So yeah, I asked this question, right? What do you think happens? We don't know. It's a black hole. I don't know. It's done. It's done, actually. It's done, right? How many of you actually have that done column in Kanban? Raise your hand, done. And if they could actually add that musical note to it, dun, dun, dun. Right? That's what happens, right? It's a black hole. We don't know, right? We don't know. Actually, when I asked this question at one of the conferences, somebody in the back said, production support happens. So they were really proud, that's justification of my existence. Production defects happen. That's why we launched. That's the next progression to this. And then again, I dived a little bit inside. Oh my God, right? So this was very interesting. This was very revealing. These guys are scrumming, no doubt about it. They're scrumming like there is no tomorrow, but it's chop story next, right? It was what's next in the queue. Come on, what's up? We got to get our velocity up. We got to get our throughput up. We got to bring our cycle lead time down. What's next? I just had a big can of Monster or Red Bull. I'm ready to go. Right? Or Mountain Dew now, right? So I'm going to digress this a little bit, but I saw this trend a lot. It started from there, meeting those teams, but I started seeing this trend a lot, and I said, this can't be me. This can't just be me who's observing this. I know I'm smart and good looking, but I mean, come on, there's got to be other people who must have figured this thing out, right? And I'm a big reader. I actually read a lot. I'm a voracious reader. I read on a lot of different things. And I came across a very interesting poll, right? There's a book called The Eighth Habit by Stephen Covey. Have you guys heard of the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? All right. Honest to God, that guy has 15, 20 habits. He's just milking it, right? He's just 15, and then the 8th, and then the 9th and the 10th, and then the 3 more effective habits, right? So in that book, this guy, he actually went and interviewed 23,000 people or employees in an organization, and he found something very interesting, right? He said about only 37% of people have a clear understanding of what their organization is trying to achieve and why, right? Only 1 in 5 are enthusiastic about their teams and their organizational goals. Only 1 in 5 said that they had a clear line of sight between what they do and how that affects the organizational goals. And only 15% felt that their organization fully enables them to execute those key goals. And this was a scary part. Only 20% fully trusted the organization they work for, only 20%. And Then I am, I'm like, okay, you know what? Another guy, he's trying to sell his book, another bunch of statistics, right? Doesn't really mean much, right? He's just writing this stuff out. But I was not able to shake this thing off. I said, there's something to it, right? So as I was marinating this information in my head, I came across a very interesting analogy. So what I want you guys to do is, for a moment, think that your team, your Scrum team, is a soccer team, all right? By the way, soccer is, do you guys understand, it's not football, soccer. I'm in US, I have to make that disclaimer. When I was in Germany, they were like, duh, what are you talking about? So it's not football, it's soccer, like ball, we kick with the foot. Everybody okay? Who does not know what soccer is? No, I really have to ask that question, I mean, you know, so yes. So soccer team, so if your team was a soccer team, what would that mean? Right, what would that mean? Only 4 of the 11 players on the field would know which side of the goal is theirs. And only 2 of the 11 would care. I mean, I know it's over there, but I'm just going to hear and kick the ball. I mean, you know, like, dude, just give me the story. I'll code for it, right? Who cares which side of the goal is ours, right? Only 2 of the 11 would know what position they're playing and know exactly what they're supposed to do, right? And all but 2 players, so 9 out of the 11 players, would in some way be actually competing against their own team. Yeah, I mean, if you have no idea which side of the goal is yours, I mean, like, yeah, you are helping the opponent over here, right? So can you imagine a bunch of these guys just being in the middle of the field and just kicking the ball all day long? That's what your Scrum team looks like, finishing their user stories, but having no idea where they're going with this, right? Yeah, this is a perfect example. Dude, just give me the user story and I'll code for it. It's happening. And it was happening in that organization too, right? Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. These guys are kicking the ball, we got it. We can kick the ball all day long. But which side? We don't know that. Did we win? I have no idea. Am I supposed to kick the ball here or that? I have no idea. Dude, just give me the story and I'll code for it, right? Try coaching that team. Try coaching that team. So it was fantastic, right? So, by the way, I take this analogy from a book called Made to Stick. They really kind of brought this down to that. So I have to give them the credit for that. So it was fantastic. But there was the aha moment that I had with them, right? So when a team is actually committing to a set of scope or features or whatnot, the only option they have is to persevere through this. They have no option of pivoting. So if the sprint started, right, and we are supposed to dish something out after 2 or 3 or 4 sprints, and if we learned something in the middle of the sprint or at the end of the sprint that, hey, this might not actually work for our users, we don't have an option. We have to persevere through this thing. We have to launch. We have to take it out. And then we'll decide, right? So a lot of output, but no sense of what outcomes are we really driving. And also, if we learned something earlier, there is no place for pivoting. We cannot pivot. We only have to persevere through this thing, right? So that's where I kind of got a little bit more curious. I said, okay, you know what? I don't blame them. Let me actually, before I make that assumption, let me ask these guys what understanding they had about their product. So I asked this question: what is wrong with your product? Right? You guys have been working on this product for a while now. There were engineers who were on this for like 10, 12 years. So if you actually went back to your team and you asked them that question, guys, you know, we work on this product. What do you think is wrong with that product? What will you hear?
These are the requirements you gave me.
These are the requirements. That's what's wrong with my product. You gave me requirements. What do you think is wrong with that product? What will you hear from your teams?
It's not working the way it should.
Yeah, but I'm working on it, but it's not working. I'm not happy. Forget users. But I will work. I have to persevere through this thing, right? Okay. I heard some noise over here. It's not fast enough. Yes, it's not fast enough. Right? I did. I went around and I asked this question, guys, what do you think? We need more refactoring, or we have a lot of dead code. We need to have more automation. And God, there was like this long conversation of like, you know, React versus Angular. And they were like, had a passionate debate about, no, I think React is the right thing and Angular isn't. And like, no, Angular is the right way. I'm like, oh my God. right? And then some guy thought that he would get a prize for giving the right answer, that like, we need more lean architecture. And they looked at me with expectation. I said, I'm not giving any prizes. Like, hot dang. So this is what their understanding was of what was wrong with their product, right? And then I asked the question, how many of you have actually seen your user using the product that you've been working on so hard in their environment? What do you think I would have expected? 0%. Yeah, I don't know. Me come, me code, me go home. My velocity is beautiful. Why are you asking me this question? Wait, this was not a part of my job responsibility to do that. Why are you asking this question to me, right? And then this is where I'm going to take a slide digression over here. I travel a lot, and whatever clients that I work with, if I see somebody outside using their product, I get very curious, and I ask, like, hey, what do you think about the product, or do you like it or do you not? And not once has any user ever told me, like, of course I use their product because they're all about React, and I'm all about React, and they're not Angular, so of course I love it. Or, dude, I hate their product because I'm all about APIs, and they're still SOAP-based stuff, so it isn't cutting for me. Or like, of course I use them. Have you seen their burn down chart? They're Agile. I have to use their product. I mean, look at their velocity. I mean, look at their throughput, for crying out loud. Not once has a user ever told me that. But yes, they have told me, like, yeah, I actually use this product because, I love how visually I can see some of my information. I love that part, right? Or I've seen an instance where, like, actually I bought this product for this purpose, but you know what? It just doesn't cut it for me. It does not solve my problem. Yes, I have heard them say that, right? So 0%. These guys had never seen how their product was being used. So sorry, I mean, we have a start over here, right? So, but it's not their fault. I kind of dug a little bit deep, right? It's not their fault, right? Because they only get asked 2 questions. Do you know what those 2 questions are? Your team only gets asked 2 questions. Yeah, right on, yes. How long? How much? And how long? These are the only 2 questions we ask them. How many story points, and when can you release it? These are the questions that they were getting asked all the time, right? How many story points, when can you launch it? How many story points, when can you launch it, right? These are the only 2 questions they were asked. So I had an aha moment over there. Learning feels weird, but delivery feels better. They're in the business of delivery. We are not in the business of learning, right? You guys heard Tim talk about it in the morning, right? We are in the business of actually learning. We should know. Delivery feels better. Learning, we don't want to, right? The question was always asked was, can it be built? But nobody actually ever came to them and asked the question, should we build this? When was the last time you guys actually went to your engineers, to your team members, and asked the question, hey, I had this idea. What do you think? Should we build this? Should we not build this? Has anybody ever done that? These are highly skilled engineers. They are problem solvers. They are not story machines. They are not code machines, right? And that is what was happening. They were always being asked, can it be built, can it be built, but never asked, should it be built? And I said, all right, this is what we are going to do different now with these teams. We're going to experiment something now, right? The build, measure, learn loop, right? It was always about build, 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 but we never measured, we never learned. It's always, actually, there's an infinite loop right here. Build, 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 deploy, build, deploy, build, deploy, build, deploy. And nothing more than that, right? So we actually said, we ran an experiment. So we said, all right, you know what? Let's open up the boundaries of the Scrum framework. Let's open them up, right? And let's get these team members involved on the stuff that's happening before and the stuff that's happening afterwards, and let's see what happens. So we said, where the magic happens, we're going to involve you guys in all this fun stuff, right? So what we did first was, while defining the outcome, the team members are a part of it. So I literally told the VP of product, I said, okay, next time we're going to be meeting with our teams, and you will be actually telling them, instead of saying that this is the outcome we want to drive, I want you to ask a different. I want you to tell them in a very different way. What I want you to say is like, guys, I think that this is the outcome we should be trying. What do you think? That's the only difference I want you to do. When you go in there, we're going to set this up. We're going to call all these guys in there, and we say, guys, I think these are the outcomes that we should be trying. What do you think? Right? He's like, Kalpesh, are you sure? I mean, this is pretty set, dude. I've sold this to our CIO and our SVP and everybody. I said, yeah, don't worry. Let's just give this a shot, see what happens. And when he asked that question, what do you think must have happened? So if you were sitting with your team members, and if you brought them in and said, guys, I think these are the outcomes we should be trying. What do you think? What do you think will be happening with your engineers? Surprise first, yes.
Maybe it'll get them thinking.
Awkward silence will happen. It was awkward silence. Yes, there was an awkward silence. I said, let's sit in this awkward silence, right? Because the point wasn't that, hey, I want to know what you think. The point was, yes, you have a say. And they were actually taking that in, like, wait a minute, I have a say in this now? Like, really? And then, instead of saying, like, what outcomes we should be driving, they actually really opened up and started asking more exploratory questions. Why this outcome? What made you think about this outcome? And they started asking clarifying questions to get more clear about why this outcome? What's really happening, right? They didn't counter it. They were just curious about that outcome. And, you know, we kind of went about it and said, like, yes, this is what really is. And we kind of went with it, right? Then what we did was, we did basically impact mapping together. How many of you are familiar with the idea of impact mapping or the concept of impact mapping? Raise your hand. Okay. Impact mapping is basically, you can literally see, like, you know, what outcome you're trying to drive, who can help us with that, how they can help us with that, and what features we need to build to basically make that happen, right? So that mapping from outcome to actually features, I told the product owner, let's do it with the team. The team collectively will be doing impact mapping with you. We will build the backlog together, right? And the product owner was a little bit worried now, like, oh my God, really? I said, yes, give this a shot, right? So the first session we had of impact mapping, we brought the engineers. And by the way, I experimented this with just like one team at first to begin with, and then see what they would do, right? So I kind of brought them in. I had to like really comfort the product owner. Don't worry, everything will be fine. And kind of brought them in and said, okay, write down what the outcome is. And I kind of explained the concept to all the engineering team members in there. What do you think happened next? Oh, your magic. I love it. It's your magic. Yeah, the awkward silence. Because we don't know. We don't know. We've always waited for you to tell us. I have no idea how do we go from outcome to features. I have no idea who can help us drive this outcome. So that's where we kind of facilitated them and said, okay, well, think about it. And the product owner was kind of, I said, instead of telling them, guide them in that direction. Right? Guide them in that direction. So first time around, there was a lot of product owner telling them and guiding them. And as we started getting better and better at it, we started doing a couple more of these, right? The team slowly started getting more comfortable. They actually really started asking questions. Like, I know that this is the outcome we are driving and why are we driving, but who can really help us? Really? These guys can help us with that stuff? Really? I mean, like, this is how they can help us? And what we did was we then started splitting them into two teams. So, you know what? You guys do this exercise, you guys do this exercise, and we will see what all different ideas you guys come up with, right? This is a very interesting picture. Can anybody spot who the product owner is in this picture? This guy? This guy? This guy? This guy? Red shirt? Well, actually, no, not really. It's actually this guy. This guy was a product owner, right? And he was just sitting there and just taking it in as like how our product is being perceived by my engineers. I work with these guys every single day. I know these guys by their name. I know they are firstborn. I know what family they come from. I know where they come from in India. All that stuff. but I had no idea how they perceived the product that we work on every single day. And he was really surprised on like what was really coming out of it, right? And the way this thing was unfolding. But slowly and steadily, these guys started getting a good idea of this. Now these guys were actually contributing ideas. And it wasn't just one guy thinking. Now it was like 6 guys and gals thinking, right? Where are the Shiro people? Are there any Shiro people in here? I met them at lunch table. Okay, never mind. So yes, it was guys and gals sitting together and actually brainstorming together, right? So okay, we are going to brainstorm and come up with features together. Some of them were just outright wrong, but I said just go with it. Just go with the show and see where it takes you, right? So we did impact mapping together, right? Then we started doing design studio. So whatever features they came up with, like they listed out a couple of features that we should actually be building, right? We did design studio together. Now, any UX guys in this room? Any UX guys, design guys at all? Okay. Do you guys know what design studios are? So design studios are something that UX guys actually run to ideate and brainstorm, right? So here's the problem we're trying to solve. What are the different variations? It's like a quick visual way of doing brainstorming. So this guy over here was a UX guy. She's a product owner over here and engineers. There are a couple of people around over here brainstorming as well. And what they did was they said, here's the problem. Here's the feature we need to build. How do you think we should build this? Like, what should it really look like? Right? And all these guys went about designing and in a very low fidelity, just sketch pen and paper kind of way, started drawing stuff out. I think this is how it should be. This is one option. This is another option or whatnot. And 2 teams came up with 2 different options, right? And they basically started putting stuff up over here, like just hand drawing what the forms and the fields and everything should look like. They kind of hand drawing and said, we think that this is what will solve our user or help drive the outcomes, right? So engineers were now involved in coming up with the designs along with the UX guys, right? And the UX guy was kind of giving them the UX guiding principles. Like, okay, you want to keep this in mind, you want to keep that in mind, right? And the product owner, she's over here, was basically taking down questions and saying, okay, here is what you want to keep in mind and stuff like that. But it was the engineers who were coming together and actually solutioning for this thing, right? So they ran a design studio together. And then came a very scary part. What we did was this UX guy actually took, there were 3 options over here, right? He took and he created high fidelity wireframes out of it. And they were actually taken to a rapid lab or a user lab. So the users were actually going to see it. You guys are all familiar with what user labs are? Or rapid labs are? How many of you are? Just raise your hand. Okay, so good number. Rapid labs or user labs are where you take your users' feedback before you build something, right, to just kind of get an idea. So what we did was, yes, we took the team and we said, we will look at the rapid lab together. We will look at rapid labs together, right? So take a moment. I want to kind of pause for a moment. I want to let you guys sink in this picture and then tell you what's happening, right? So here is it was being live broadcasted. They weren't really there. It was live broadcasted, right? So here is the screen that they had built. Here is the user. They could actually see how the user was behaving or interacting or whatnot. Here is a whiteboard where we listed down all the features we were testing. Here were the hypotheses that we were trying to validate. And it was like a yes, no column, like if it did or not. So take a moment to take this picture in. I completely, in a very random way, I took this picture, not realizing what was happening. But when I looked at it a little bit more, the body language told a lot of things to me, right? What's interesting about this picture? Anything that stands out? What? They don't look happy. Yes. Yeah, actually, you're right. They don't look happy. You're right. Anybody else?
I think the user is using totally differently what they perceive.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yes. Anybody else?
It looks like IT is explaining it instead of the user trying it.
Okay. Well, no, nobody's explaining them the user anything. They can't even hear them. Nothing. It's actually professionals who are doing this user lab in a very facile manner. These guys are just watching it live on how people are interacting. Anybody else? So this is very interesting. The feature that is being displayed, so this guy right here, right? This guy right here, same guy right here. So when the user was actually working on trying to figure out or whatnot, it was in such a wrong way. This guy couldn't even sit down. Look at his body, like, oh my God. Like, just click there. It's right there. This guy couldn't even sit down. It's like, oh my God. Like, how stupid are you? How many of you blame, like, it's the users are stupid? Right? I am perfect, but the users are stupid, right? It was like a moment of revelation for him. It was like, come on. I really worked on it. I did the impact mapping, I did the design studio, and now you're just throwing it off? That happened, right? Second interesting individual. This guy right here, Scrum Master Project Manager. Look at his body language. Why is he worried? What? This thing is going to affect my velocity like there is no tomorrow. The pretty charts that I showed them, oh my, goodbye. Right? What's the biggest concern for any project manager, Scrum Master? Scope and schedule, right? This is the stuff that was lined up like a sprint or two down the line, and the users are just chewing it up and throwing it away. I have nothing in the backlog for these guys to work on. It's like, how am I going to fund this team? How will I justify paying these guys? What will be, because that's their comfort zone. Predicting stuff, giving them timeline, right? My beautiful burn down charts, my beautiful velocity chart. Now my velocity is going to be down. I will not be delivering 60 points. It will only be 30 points because this stuff, other 30 points just got thrown out the window. Worried as hell. Worried as hell, right? But something very interesting happened after that as well. Like this lady right here, she's a tester, right? And she saw something very interesting happen with the user when they showed them the mobile version of that particular feature. What the user did was, as soon as they were shown the mobile version, that user actually stood up and started walking around. And they all like, why did you stand up? Why are you walking around? It's like, I'm never sitting down when I'm accessing your product in my mobile. I'm always on the go. I am never like perfectly sitting down and using your stuff. I'm actually on the go. I'm always walking around. And you know what she did going forward? Every time she was testing anything, she used to never sit at her perfect desk with perfect internet connection, with perfect screens and everything. No. This lady from there on forward actually started walking around the building and all over the place to kind of see if this thing really works or not. Because her role wasn't to find defects. Her role was, will this work the way our users actually use it? Does it work in their environment? Does it work in the crappiest internet connection? By the way, they actually did research, right? In this particular case, they asked the users, like, where are you most often when you use the mobile version of our product? Do you know what answer they got? The restrooms, yes, the toilets. So now we don't question our QAs when they take the tablets and the phones into the restroom, right? Because we get it. Because it was personal. The product was very personal by nature. I don't want people spying around me, right? And usually it's the restroom where you have the crappiest internet connection, right? And I honestly believe it's by design. It's by design. So you won't spend like an hour over there surfing the internet, right? So that was very interesting. They started getting a very good understanding of the way their product is being perceived by their user. What is our user behavior? What are their challenges? What are they struggling with? And what's the disconnect between the way I perceive and the way I think about my product and the way they perceive and they use it? There's a huge gap over here. It doesn't matter how many stories I finish. As long as that gap is big, we will always fail. So the question I ask is, how far are your engineers from their users? You could be scrumming and agiling till the cows come home. It doesn't matter if there is like an exponential distance between them. If that gap is big, it doesn't matter how perfect your user stories are, how perfect your backlog is, how perfect your burn down charts are. It will not matter. And that's what I wanted to prove to these guys. Yeah, you guys are perfect. You guys are doing Agile very correctly. But this is the stuff that's missing, right? So they started attending this stuff a lot and started increasing their product understanding. You know what I say is that And by the way, the product owner over here is cool as cucumber because she expected that. Yeah, because that's normal to us. We know this happens. And she's actually explaining, like, don't worry, you guys, don't worry. Like, this is just one of the users. We're going to actually be having some other users as well. And the thing that I tell the engineers is, like, you can have a great tech IQ. And many of us, I mean, how many of you guys actually interview engineers before they bring into your team? How many of you guys actually interview them? Are you guys part of the interview? How many engineers in the room, by the way? Any engineers? You guys are the right talk. So what are we really looking for? We're always looking for how good is their tech IQ, right? Right? How deep is their tech IQ? How sound are they technically, right? How often we actually check for their product IQ? So when I went and I was talking to their leadership, right, I said, like, it doesn't matter how great their tech IQ is. What we need to do is actually increase their product IQ. Because then they will be the Navy SEAL 6 team, which will be unbeaten, right? Do you know what's the purpose? You know the reason why you actually co-locate product owners with the engineers? Why? So, there's this whole co-location ordeal, right? Everybody says co-locate, co-locate, co-locate. Has anybody actually ever stopped and asked the question, why should we co-locate product owners with the engineers? Why? Yeah, to an extent, yes. Collaborate is a very loose term, right? You know how collaboration is perceived? I will be writing user stories with them. We'll be grooming the user stories with them, right? So if they have any questions, I can answer that. That is not the real reason why you should be co-locating your product owners with them. Well, because I have had product owners, like, I write perfect user stories. Why do I need to be with my engineers? I have video chat always available. These guys can IM me, video chat with me any single time, any time. Why should I be co-located with them? I can be very effective that way. Why should I be co-located with them? I can be in a telepresence room and ask that question to an engineer right away. Still feels like the same thing.
You get a feel for their frustration.
The product owners or engineers' frustration? I want to clarify, right? Well, the engineers' frustration, yes. Yeah. Yeah, and I think the goal is to, like, not understand each other's frustration, but be frustrated together. That is what I was trying to do over here. The goal of co-locating the product owner isn't so I can, like, tell their user stories or ask for feasibility so that I can get the answers of how long and how much quickly. No, it's to actually impart the product IQ, to increase the product IQ of your engineers, to actually be there and actually ask the question, what do you think? What are your ideas? Can we brainstorm together? And increase their product IQ. Otherwise, you as a product owner or your product owners will be a story writing machine and nothing more than that. You guys will be spending hours and hours writing user stories. Nothing more than that. The whole goal of actually co-locating was to increase their product IQ. Right? I'm sorry, what was that again? Yes, absolutely. And tech IQ as well. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, 110%. Yes. So we did empathy mapping together too. So once they saw how the user was reacting and interacting, how many of you are aware of what empathy mapping is? Okay, very good. It's actually a design thinking thing, right? So I said, let's go and do empathy mapping now. So you guys actually observe these users, right? Empathy mapping is where we basically draw this picture up on the whiteboard, and we say, what do you think they were saying while they were using your product? What do you think they were thinking when they were using your product, right? What do you think they were doing, and how do you think they were feeling, right? And just basically start writing it down. And what we were doing is, how was the same thing being perceived by the different members of the team? What did they all perceive, right? Because this is how they're getting in the minds of their users. Put yourself in their shoes. So we did that, and so I want to ask you guys this question. If when I did that the first time around, what do you think I would have expected? I gave them sticky notes, here are the sticky notes, start writing it down, start sticking them up. What do you think must have happened? Awkward silence. I was expecting that too. But this happened. I was surprised. I was actually preparing for awkward silence. But this happened. No, they had opinion. Once they went through all this stuff, now they actually had opinions. They knew, by the way, that's like a very weak attempt of me drawing this stuff, right? It's just, it came out so ugly, they still make fun of this. Like, I was trying this, and like, this came out, and I tried to get some hair on this guy too, but it didn't work out. So, I had to take that beating, but that's about how artistic I get, okay? And I'm okay with that. But these guys kind of went to town. They started writing stuff down. I mean, the product owner is nowhere in this picture at all. That product owner is actually standing back and seeing how much these guys had observed. Yes, let me tell you, news flash, your engineers can observe. They do have opinions, right? And they kind of started going and writing this stuff down, right? Now these guys were connecting with what problem we are trying to solve. So we kind of basically, we were trying to increase their product IQ. Do you even know why you're writing this code? And by the end of this, yes, they were very much in tune. And they were actually now challenging the product owner, like, no, I don't think this is the right thing to build. I think we should be doing this, or we should be doing that, right? Now they had an opinion on the stuff that they were working on. They honestly did, to my surprise, right? After that, what we did was, let's actually bring that entire unit and increase the entire unit's product IQ. So what we did was, we actually sent out like a little contest. They have started these contests. So what we do is, we send out these emails which says, decide which design will win. And it's like a voting thing. People can actually vote which design will win. And we basically started by saying, you know, what's our objective? What's our target segment? Who are we really? What personas are we targeting? What are the key metric? Like when will we know that this actually worked? And what outcome is it driving, right? We send it out. It's a blast out to all the 12 product teams, all the 12 Scrum teams. Got it, right? Option A is this, and option B is this. And we can basically blast it out. There's a time. So within a week, all the votes should be in. And once we deploy this and it's out, whichever one actually wins, people who actually voted for it would go in a pool and we'll give a reward. Right? So we were giving like small like Lego pieces or little avatars or like $5 Amazon gift cards or stuff like that. We had a little budget for that, right? So we said, okay, now everybody was involved in which design was going to win. I know it was just built by one team, but the entire floor was now involved in seeing what's happening. The real reason was actually to move these guys from discussing, hey, when are we launching? When's the launch date? Have you guys launched this or not? The conversation completely shifted. It went from, when are you deploying this? Or is this in yet? Or when will we get there? It shifted to which design won. Did our users actually liked it? Did I win? I'm really curious. The conversation shifted from output to outcome. And it was revealing at times, we got like majority of vote for one particular design and completely different one. And that was the aha moment. Everybody used to be surprised, like, oh my God, like how come? And there were instances where like one design got like 95% of the votes. And then there were like people that started like, you know, just because I think this is going to win, I'm actually going to vote the other one because I want to win. Because I don't think like this will win. I want to increase my odds of winning, right? And they voted for something completely different. And a whole different thing would come out and everybody would be curious. Do you know what happened? So what do you think must have happened after that? If a majority of people voted for one design to win and something else completely won, what do you think would have happened? Yeah. Well, not really, but yeah.
No, I'm saying they would feel that. If
Yeah.
they voted for something and the other one won.
Yeah, like the users actually said that they want something else. Like it's a multivariate testing. We deployed it in production. There are two versions of the same thing going on, and which one won? The users made the final judge, right? This is what we want. This is what we like, and this is what we're going with, because that's what met the success criteria. Interesting thing happened. Engineers were going to other engineers and asking about, hey, why did that happen? Why did the users actually like that? And for the first time, I actually saw the conversation not being whether we should be React or Angular, to actually, why did our users actually pick this? What do you think really happened? And the discussion went into like, yeah, we did this empathy mapping, or when we actually observed them in a rapid lab, this is what we actually saw them doing. The conversation shifted from which technology is sexy to like, wow, this really solved their problem? I had no idea. And now they were actually discussing product. And they weren't discussing technology. right? Not that I'm saying it's bad or it's good or bad. I think it's phenomenal, actually, that they're actually now worried about what the problems are and the randomest way our users actually behave, right? Increasing the product IQ, right? So that was including them in all the stuff that was happening before they actually write a single line of code. I actually always say the question, I ask the question, like, to engineers, like, do you know why you're, like, what problem are you solving? And if the answer is like, no, I don't know. So my first thing is like, stop and step away from that keyboard. Do not write a single line of code if you do not know what problem you're solving and how will you know that it's actually got solved. If you don't know that, do not even touch the keyboard, right? Because you're going to write just more spaghetti code. So now it's coming to the black hole part of it. I said, let's expose them to the black hole part of it, right? So how many of you actually send out like ginormous release and launch announcements? Like, hurrah, we made it, it's launched, it's in production. How many of you actually send that out? Don't lie, come on. I know most of you do, right? Like 500 people are copied on it, like the leaders are copied, and the leaders respond back by saying, good job, great job, hurrah, right? That's the only time you get an email from them. Right? Saying like, great job, right? Only like 2 words, dude. I like spent all-nighters. I missed like my kid's soccer game or whatnot for this, and you had like two words, great job? No, like exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. It's like, great job? Or is it like, great job? Like, I don't even know how to read that email. So that's one thing we did. We said like, no release or launch announcements. We are not going to be sending that out. And everybody was like, dude, now we are pushing the boundaries. We were all cool with all that stuff, but now we are pushing the boundaries because that's like our like feel-good factor, right? I said, yes, we are not sending out launch announcements because who cares? Everybody goes to production like every day. Like, I heard this crazy number or something like that. Like Amazon can launch like every 11.6 seconds or something like that, right? If they were sending out launch announcements, they would need like a team of 100 people just sitting there and sending launch announcements. Literally, you'll be like spammed by launch announcements, right? That doesn't matter. Who cares? The whole world goes to production. That's not what's important, right? So what we said was no launch announcement, but we'll actually have a learning announcement. So the email got changed this way, right? So we basically send out an email to everybody and their family, right? Latest progress, learnings, and plans, right? So we basically started listing out, like, what is it that we are trying to do, right? It was a long email. What progress have we made? So what all stuff have we actually dished out? What features were dished out by this team in this last 2 sprints, right? What did we learn from that? What metrics got moved? And it's okay if they don't move. That's fine by us. This is what we learned, right? We learned that we got so many hits, something increased by X%, or we got like, brand new users, or blah, 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 blah. We got so many of that stuff with these features, right? And based on that learning, how are we now planning to respond, right? So yeah, we learned this stuff, and what are we going to do about it? That is the announcement that's going out, right? And then, of course, like the whole thank yous and whatnot at the very end. Great, 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 blah, blah, blah. But that is what it was, right? Because this was my argument. You get more of what you reward. If you are going to be rewarding delivery, you will get more delivery. If you reward outcomes, you're going to get more outcomes. And with these kind of emails, right? And it was simple as an email. Nothing else. A simple email change, right? Everybody started getting more curious. Even the leadership started getting more curious. Now I'm getting more than just great job. Now I'm like, hey, curious. This moved by this %, but this didn't move by this %. What really happened? Now even they're curious. They came from the woodworks. They came out of the woodworks or whatnot, from the towers or whatnot. And their black limousines started coming out and saying, what happened? What happened? Right? Or if something did not move, they're like, hey, what happened? Right? And a lot of the times, the engineers and the team members and even the product owners are a little reluctant, like, should we actually put this out? I said, yes, you should put this out. This feature did nothing for our users. You should explicitly call that out so that they're aware of that. So we don't repeat that same mistake. But it wasn't just learning, because that's not the only thing that's important. The biggest thing was, yeah, that didn't happen, but what are you going to do about it? How are you going to respond? Now what are you going to put in your backlog based on this learning that you have? And that was a change, right? That was a change that we made. And even all the metrics, it was me who went crazy on that big printer. I said, I'm going to post this out. Every 2 weeks, I'll be posting this stuff out. So to go to their office, to go to their floor, they always had to like take the staircase. So you cannot miss it. If you went to your desk, you had to see this. This was in their face. This is why you walked into the office. You are here to solve this problem. You didn't just walk into the office to write more code. You actually came to move these metrics. And if they weren't moving, you had to actually pause and ask that question. How many of you in your team or your team members are able to like readily just go and look at the metrics and the data of the usage of the features? How many of you can just kind of go and quickly look at it? Yes? No? Yes, you can? Good place. Contact this guy. Good place to work. Right? So that's what we did. You cannot even walk in. And now what they did was, this was actually my MVP. The leader said, like, Kalpesh, first I said, like, can I get big screens or whatnot that are always flashing this information? They said, first, we're going to give you your own medicine. Show us the value. So I said, okay, this was my low fidelity MVP way of saying this. Okay, you know what? I'm going to burn your printers. So I kind of went to town with this stuff. And it was a color printer, gigantic, right? And kind of started printing this stuff out. You could never walk up to your desk without ever looking at this stuff. And yes, that made them question. Repeatedly when they were looking at this stuff or something was not moving at all, they did pause and ask that question, like, dang, this thing is not moving. What should we do? The conversation was no longer about when is the delivery, when is the launch, what's the scope? The conversation was now, how can we move this metric? What's happening with our users that this thing is not moving? Come on, we launched like 5 features to address this and still no movement? Get curious about that stuff. Give them problems to solve, not solutions to implement. That was the motto, right? And that's what the conversation changed, right? So team needs to be measured by the successful experience in the hand of their customers and not a successful delivery of the project, right? Who cares if you're on time? Who cares if you're in budget? Who cares if your velocity is fantastic? Who cares if you have fantastic throughput and cycle lead time? None of that matters if your users are still not very happy with that. That's what you should be measuring your teams with. Tell them that that's what you're measured on. If you tell them I'll measure velocity, you're going to get fantastic velocity charts. You tell them I'm going to measure you on outcome, you're going to have some users who are going to start loving you guys now. Right? So the aha moment was like, with many teams, we had like, many dreams. All these different teams were working on different things, but it was like we shifted that from one team to one dream. Our dream were these metrics, these problems of our users, and we are one team. We might be like 12 different separate teams, but we are all in this together. The mission is same, right? So we kind of brought the POs, engineers, and designers, started working together. That's the holy trinity is what I say, right? The cross-functional team isn't just QA, front-end, back-end, and the product owner. It's the product owners, the engineers, and the UX guys sitting together, problem solving. I kind of call this the holy trinity. This is what's going to give this a true cross-functional team and co-locate these guys, right? So we had 12 Scrum teams before. Now we actually had 12 product teams who had a very good understanding of what their product does, what problem their product solves, and how they can address their users' problems, right? So you would say that, well, okay, this is awesome, Kalpesh, right? I mean, those guys must be happy as hell, and all the stuff would have been awesome, and they lived happily ever after, right? And the leader, you go up to leadership, and you must have looked like a hero, somewhat, kind of, right? But their velocity didn't increase. After a year of doing all this stuff, their velocity wasn't even, and actually dipped a little bit. Their velocity didn't get any better. Their throughput didn't get any better. Even that one took a dip. The throughput didn't get better. Their speed to market didn't get any better. They weren't like dishing stuff out any faster than when I actually joined them. It was still the same. So now you're like, dude, like I sat through like 45 minutes to like an hour worth of this stuff and none of this actually moved and they still paid you? Yes, they did. They did. It's like the paycheck, right? I'm like, yeah, that's when I get paid, right? None of this stuff moved. But I wasn't brought in to actually move any of this stuff, is what I reminded them. I wasn't here to fix this stuff. But what did get better was the hit ratio. What's the hit ratio? It's the number of features that your team is actually dishing out by the number of features that your users actually loved, right? So number of features that were successful divided by number of features your team actually dished out, right? That is the hit ratio, and that got better. They were probably in like 5%, 8% area, and by the time we were done, they were averaging around 20%. By the way, the best in business have about 30%. Best in business. Best in business. I'm talking about the Amazons and the Twitters and the Facebooks. I've actually gone and met them. Yes, the best in business have somewhere around 30%. That is the number you're trying to get better at. That is the reason why you went agile, right? The motivation was off the roof. These guys were like really vested. I mean, they were like really in it. Like, yeah, we are like excited. We are psyched because our opinion matters now. I actually contribute to my product development, right? I am not just an engineer. I am not just a Java resource. I'm not just a QA resource. No, I'm not. I'm actually a contributor to this product. And I have vested interest. Yes, my opinion matters, right? And their employee pulse survey kind of really reflected that. It was up the roof, saying, yeah, we are actually excited. It was no longer me come, me code, me go home. It was me come, me learn, and me make our product more effective. And yes, I mean, yeah, there were passionate debates, don't get me wrong, between the product owners and the engineers. Yes, there were. But that's actually a good sign. Why is that a good sign? Because they cared. They started caring for this stuff. Yes, my work matters. My opinion matters, right? So it wasn't just like, user stories, what we kind of like, no, they were only involved in this. Now we actually involve them throughout. Like, who are we really solving for? What problem are we solving? What are the different ways of doing this thing? Can we actually watch and do customer discovery together? Then we'll build it, and then we'll decide whether we want to scale it or not. Now they were involved in this entire cycle. And that is the reason why I said, yes, their velocity did take a hit. Their throughput did take a hit. But that doesn't matter because your hit ratio went up. Now you're actually making more money as an organization. And that is the reason why you went agile, right? So we kind of changed to a product development manifesto, right? So we said product over software. That's what's important to us. We are not here to just write software. Product over software. And experience over functionality. That is what is important to us. We are not here to just write more features, not more functionality. What experience are we delivering to our users? That is what we are here for. So that was our new mantra after that, right? So with that said, I basically asked this question, right? When you go back to your teams, and with whatever you just heard today, and then try some of this stuff, because none of this stuff is magic. It's all actually very simple, very easy. So the question that I ask is like, are you going to treat like your engineers to be like really engineers who are going to solve the problems of your users? Are you going to treat them like the superheroes who won't stop till justice is delivered to their users? Or are you going to treat them like backlog lumberjacks, right? I basically always pull this analogy. It's like basically a lumberjack, right? This wood here, chop, next. Wood here, chop, next. Wood here, chop, next, right? I have no idea where this wood came from or what is this wood really used for. I'm just interested in chopping this thing, right? So don't make your team backlog lumberjacks, right? Their opinion matters. Utilize them. They're engineers. They're skilled, right? So how many of you were like so involved in this talk that you forgot to take notes? So I have a sketch note of this. You guys can take a picture of that, right? I actually just like, how many of you are like mesmerized by my good looks over here? But I'm not going to go there. So there's a sketch note of this. And by the way, I'm tracking everybody's RFID. Everybody will be charged like a $2.99 for taking a picture. So when you guys go, it's automatically beeped out, right? Now everybody's like, oh, snap, I'm not taking pictures now, delete. Are we done? Oh, no, okay. Can I get a thumbs up now? All right. All right, good. Well, now I'm going to be like, that's my way of like, watermarking, like, yeah, mine. Right? So, so with that said, I'm done. Any questions? I would usually like now actually have a hand on my, so I actually like drop it, like done. Right? So questions. Any questions on whatever? Yes. Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So remember in the email that we sent out, so our product owners always started by saying, here is the success criteria. So if this feature is dished out, and it wasn't easy. Our product owner had to be actually trained on that stuff, right? No CSPO class trains them for that. So we actually said, like, how will we know? So how many hits are we looking for? How many recommendations are we looking for? How much money will be spent or whatnot? So they had a criteria that would say if this happened, it'll be considered successful. Yeah. Any questions? Yes.
So, transitioning from a Scrum team to a product team must have taken time.
A year and a half.
How did management react to that time?
Yeah, so remember, like, nothing different was being done. Now they're just getting involved in more of these activities. Now they actually have more opinion, they have more thoughts. So it wasn't that their work was getting ginormously affected. It's not their deadlines got missed or anything like that. They were scrumming and all that stuff was beautiful. And that's why I say it's a hack. It's a culture hack, right? You are bringing a new way of working without disrupting a whole lot of stuff, right? Yeah. Because if you see any of this stuff, I mean, none of this stuff is like, like ginormously crazy. It's like changing an email or bringing them into a meeting or bring them into a user lab or something. None of them is like disruptive. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Right. So I'm not saying don't do release notes. Yes, you have to know like whatever is being dished out. I'm saying launch announcements, saying, hurrah, we are awesome. Look at this. We actually dished it out. Right? I'm not rewarding that. I will actually reward outcome. Yeah, you dished out and good for you. I mean, send out your release notes and whatever trainings you need to figure out, do that. Nothing wrong in that. Somebody has a question here.
You mentioned they were like rocking Scrum.
Yeah.
So what were they inspecting and adapting?
Process. So process, like, oh, we missed out, we found a lot of defects. How do we fix this better? Or, oh, we actually missed 2 of these stories. So how do we kind of do this like better next time around, right? Or we had too much carryover in our next sprint or something like that, right? So it was how do we work with each other better? So it was more of a process inspect and adapt rather than a product inspect and adapt. Yeah? Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Are both important though?
Yes, they both are. But once you reach a tipping point, the other is more important. Right? All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for coming. I hope this was worth your time. Thank you. Thank you. I'm still hanging out over here if you have any questions. So, and that lady needs to give my phone back. Yes.